Yeah,
Mike likes that.
yeah. He can't say I never done nothing for him.
That's right.
Okay.
True.
He ain't nothing. Now he ain't gonna be wearing that for a minute
It's hot.
because it's like.
It's hot.
It is burnt
but
up.
but there will be eventually the temperature will go down. Now we have to do for him now. No, he work on Sunday. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He can make it to a game.
You think he make it to a game?
We'll make it happen.
You
Had
might
to
have-
holler at Don.
Oh, well, if I get some tickets.
Oh no, I'm saying holler at Don. I'll be off. Take
Oh.
off.
Really?
Take off a Sunday.
Well,
I take off from my regular job.
You do?
Yeah, got to.
Okay.
Sales, you got it. It's a lot of.
Oh yeah. A
lot of mental. You need
to be refreshed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that. All right. And you all right? Take a deep breath.
I'm good.
You
You know
ready to
what?
go?
I had a real good weekend. I just want to highlight the D10 Peace Rally that they held at the Thurgood Marshall yesterday. Lots of free food that was so good, ceviche and like Philly cheesesteaks that I need to figure out where that came from because I need to go back. And as well as like a little jumpy house, and they were giving out gifts. And so next time you need to participate because it was. And I also wanted to highlight coming up this weekend, YCD is having their We Run the Bay 5K. So go ahead and sign up for that. We will have the link on our Facebook page, Stay Alive and Free, so you can learn all about that. You can also just visit the website and sign up. So stay healthy, exercise, and support your local nonprofits. So that's what I have going on.
You're right. Back-to-back weekends.
Yes.
All right. You run a Philmo. You run.
Yes.
I don't like running, man.
Yes, I love running.
Good.
I run from Divisadero to the beach.
That's good.
Oh, you really do run?
Yeah.
Like for real, you run?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get him in this 5K.
Let me just say, you can also walk if you'd like. It's not a race. This is untimed. It's just really,
I got to work on my
That's
man
fine.
moves, so yeah, I need to be in that 5K.
Don't tell nobody that, man.
I think you're doing all right, Mike. You're good.
I don't like running, man. I never did like running. I actually ran track my freshman year in college, and I don't like it.
Oh.
So the only running I like
Discipline.
from one end of the court to the other. Then I can run. I can run all day. I can run all day there.
Right.
But just running, to be running, you get that runner's high. You get all that.
Mm-hmm.
The endorphins kick in and all that. I don't like that.
Really do.
Yeah.
All right. Good for you. Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
So you popped in. What's up, my brother?
What's up, family? What's up, y'all? And I like running, but my knees don't. So
Oh.
You're right, man. You're right. All right, we got some news. Then we're gonna get into the show. And Fillmore, we keep losing people, man. We keep losing people. This week we lost the great John Amos.
Oh.
That's a weird story too.
Around his death?
Yeah.
I haven't heard the story around his death.
Well,
I
his
just heard
family said that he actually passed away August 21st.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa! I just read that.
Yeah.
He died August 20, and this is what day?
Yeah, exactly.
I just heard about it too.
I just come out so late.
That's what the controversy is.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm stopped there. I can't even get into the accolades. That caught me. Died August 20.
I mean, maybe is that were they acting on his instructions?
Nobody knows.
It don't
Okay.
say.
Okay,
It doesn't
because
say.
that does happen sometimes. Where
But the daughter didn't know.
now that's different.
That's our point. That's what I was talking about. I was actually talking to Shay Diddy about that. That was really crazy.
That's weird. Now that's very, very strange. All right.
Regardless,
we'll put that aside and
just the great actor, the great John Amos. We know mostly from Good Times, but he I know him. I remember him in Roots and a lot of other movies too in the 70s. Just a fantastic actor. Oh man.
There you go.
He's America. That's Black America's father right there.
Coming to America.
Oh yeah.
Coming to America.
Coming to America. That's right.
The big thing is James Evans Sr. James Evans Sr. He looked like JJ. He was ready to kill JJ all the time on the show, but now in fact, I remember when they wrote his part out of the show, it was a different show. It still went on, but John.
It's hard for people who, for younger folks who weren't there at that time to understand how the significance of that role. Doc, you were there. You knew it. I was young, but I mean, you were in prime time. It's just that father figure was so important.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And you watch the reruns on. You catch them on TV one day.
Still a great show. I laugh watching Good Times all the time.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Rest in power, brother. We miss you, bro. We'll miss you.
We keep losing folks. We can. Then Hall of Famer Dikembe Mutombo. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I mean, he was a really good basketball player, but he was a greater
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he was. But it was his big voice, his laugh, all he did for the people, of his home country. He was a basketball ambassador.
He was.
He was just great, man. Yeah, and he died young, 58, and that's young. So we've lost like, well, I don't even want to start naming the names, but it's in this 2-week period, 3 period, we have lost a lot of wonderful people.
And obviously baseball great Pete Rose passed away this week too.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it does seem like I know folks pass every day, but it does feel like we're getting hit in these last couple of weeks, one after another.
Yes. Okay. My guest is saying, I'm gonna let my guest say, hang on, you're coming on. All right, yep, hang on, we're gonna get you in. Gotta preview the show, the whole bit. So yes.
Let me just.
Yeah, we gotta get him in. We gotta get him in. All right. Okay. I told him, and then sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, but you know how it is. So you'll be on in a second, but let me tell you what we're going to do tonight. Tonight, we're going to do What's on Your Mind.
Yeah.
What's on your mind? We're going to take a slight break from the campaign and the election and all of that. We're going to do What's on Your Mind. So I'm going to give the numbers. We want to call and tell me what's on your mind. 877-955-1061. That's the main theme tonight. 877-955-1061. And I'm going to start with what's on my mind. And what's on my mind, and Philmo, I want you to, is the verdict in the Tyre Nichols death of Tyre Nichols by those 5 black officers in Memphis. After about, we can get our guest in here now. After about 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found one former Memphis police officer guilty of civil rights violations connected to the fatal beating of Tyre Nichols over 20 months ago. Do you remember that case, Mike?
Mhm.
You remember that case? The jury found Demetrius Haley guilty of using excessive force, being deliberately indifferent to his medical needs, conspiring to witness tamper and witness tampering. And it goes through to Darius Bean and Justin Smith Jr. were found of witness tampering. And it goes through what's happening to all of them. Let me just tell you, both Martin and Mills took plea deals. Both men also testified for the prosecution. Mills' plea came with a recommended 15-year sentence. All right, it goes into all of that.
This is concerned to Memphis with, was the guy that he beat up or injured, wasn't he messing with his girlfriend or something like that?
Well, I'll go through the details, but let's get my guest in because I wanted someone to talk about this, someone who was involved with police brutality, police misconduct cases, and so I called on an old friend and asked him to come in and give me his perspective on this. And once he is he on?
Yeah,
Okay, he's on. Okay.
I'm here.
All right. I can't see you.
I don't know why I'm here.
I hear you, but I can't see you.
Well, it's radio. It's okay.
No, but I would like to see it.
Well, I am a
would
video.
like the eye contact. And is there a reason we can't see him? Oh, it's on his end. Okay. You think so? All right. Well, you won't. You
want,
want to
you
make a
can-
suggestion to him, and or else we'll just go with the.
Oh, Mr. Burris, it's good to have you here with us. If you'd like to, we'd love to see you. You might need to log out, maybe restart your computer and just come right back.
If not, we'll go with the
Yeah.
we'll go with the vocal. How's that? What do you
That's
think?
right.
What do you think?
What would you like, Mr. Burris?
Can you hear me or see me?
Yeah.
We can hear you. We can hear you. We can't see it, but we're here. So we'll go with the voice.
There we go.
So oh, John, thanks so much for joining us this evening to talk about the verdict in the Tyree Nichols case. In a minute, I'll go through what exactly happened. But you've been involved with a number of these police misconduct cases. I actually went back and looked you up, and you actually did you represent Rodney King back then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we were young.
Yeah. yeah, we've known each other for a long time. And of course, you represented the family of God. My names are messing with me now.
Oscar Grant.
Oscar Grant.
Yeah, that was a big one.
And when I was on the
Yes.
police commission, you know, we
Yeah.
ran into each other regularly.
Mhm.
This one was a stunner for folks because it involved five black officers who killed this young man. And it just, people like, what? You know, just couldn't believe it. And let me ask you, first of all, what did you think about the verdict in the case itself? And your thoughts about that?
Surprising. I thought that the evidence itself really would suggest that there were civil rights violations for homicide or murder, if you will. It's a special section, 42 USC, 18 USC 242. The difference here, though, which I was surprised at, that they found him guilty of tampering with evidence, which seemed on its face a relatively minor charge in light of what they in fact did. And this is a case where they did some serious beating of this man, kicking him, punching him, left him for dead, just abused him. And it was surprising that they were not found guilty of the more serious offense. One of them was found guilty of violation of the man's civil rights. Well, that led to a beating. Well, that in and of itself should have led to a more serious violation in a sense that contributed to the man's death. But it did not. And the only thing I could think of, I must tell you, that there is this sense of giving police officers the benefit of the doubt. And black officers, maybe they have black jury, I don't know. If so, there was a sense that maybe they should not be treated as harshly as the evidence might suggest. But I'm going to tell you, I've been involved in police cases. It is very, very difficult to get police officers charged with a crime, even in death cases. And so unless if it's situational, that is to say it happened at that point in time and there was no other underlying issue going on beforehand, it's more likely than not that they're not going to find the person guilty of first-degree murder. In this case, they didn't find any murder. They just found that there was tampering with evidence and a lesser offense. Now, keep in mind, I think the jury, that everyone should keep in mind, this is not the final verdict, okay? This is the federal verdict that you get in a federal case. But the similar charges will be filed in state court, and those will be straight up murder. Now, that's different in a state court situation than it is in a federal case, because in a federal case, you didn't have to charge murder. You can cause death and civil rights violation per se. It's kind of technical. But on balance, if you look at the totality of the fact, you say, wait a minute, this is a guy who was minding his own business. He created a minor traffic event, and they started beating on him. He ran. They caught him and beat him again. Well, that seems to me pretty harsh. And the person dies. That strikes me as murder. At the very least, it's a second-degree murder or even a manslaughter. But under federal statutes, it was surprising that they were not convicted of the more serious offense. I can only say that it is more likely than not under the state cause of action, they would be found guilty of murder, in the sense is it's only a question of substantial factors. The facts that they engaged in were the intent to cause bodily harm, that bodily harm resulted in death. That is going to be a conviction for probably at least a second-degree murder on his face. Maybe a manslaughter, but not as likely.
I want to ask you some other things, but let me just, for the people that don't know about the case, just for a minute, let me just read what happened to Mr. Nichols. He was pulled over in the evening hours of January 7th. The stop was originally described as a reckless driving stop. All right. Although one officer, the officer who initiated the stop, said that he had run a red light. Okay. Footage released by the city, much of which was shown the child, saw officers aggressively pulling him from the car. And one of the officers testified that he and Haley had their guns drawn when they stopped him. All right. They wrestled him to the ground, began to pepper spray him. Nichols got away, and he was able to escape, or the grip didn't hold, and he got away. He ran from the scene, and another officer fired his taser at him. And officers found Mr. Nichols, Tyree, and tackled him. They punched him, held his arms, kicked him, pepper sprayed him, and hit him with a baton. They yelled for Nichols to give us your hands, despite two officers already having his arms. He mentioned he was handcuffed and pulled over. He was placed up against it. Now, this is the part I remember. I mean, there's a lot of things I remember this, but while they laughed, while they recounted the arrest. All right. All right. He was taken to San Francisco Hospital in critical condition, and he died at the hospital. This was ugly. And again, like you reading this and reading the verdicts, I didn't see. I was trying to figure out, and you explained it. You explained it pretty well. I didn't see murder. I didn't see manslaughter. I didn't see all these other things, and so, yeah, I couldn't figure out what was going on. However, John, help me with this. It says that still, even under these charges, they can be facing maximum sentence of 20 years, a couple of the officers, and because it's federal, and one of the officers who took a plea deal is a 15-year sentence possibly, and another came with a recommended 40-year sentence possibly. So just on these charges and the convictions, are those kind of prison terms actually possible here from my reading, or am I missing something?
Because it's a death case, the charges themselves would typically not warrant those kinds of punishments. Those are like life imprisonment type of sentences. Those are like very, very sincere, but they were convicted of tampering. Tampering with evidence is really generally is not a very significant matter. But obviously all federal sentences have long periods of time. Yeah. But what they also have is what they call, a sentencing guidelines. So what happens, even though the statute may say 20 years, the sentencing guidelines for that type of offense for a first offender may be 5 years, So it's not likely they will get the maximum. Nobody gets the maximum anyway. They will get some portion of it, but I don't see a person getting 40 years. If the other people in this case got 5 or 10 years, you could and should get 20 or more, I would think, particularly those who kicked him in the head, that ultimately he died as a consequence of brain damage. That certainly would warrant the most serious charge. I will say one thing: the reason why some of these charges didn't seem to follow what we looked at is that the police argued that the punches they gave were because he was resisting. He would not give them their hand, and this is standard police jargon. That you try to protect yourself, you get hit, you react to being hit, then they say that's resisting. And as long as they're saying you're resisting, they keep hitting you. And so some of the officers claimed that the kicking and the hitting was because he refused to show him their hands or give them their hands, therefore offering up some form of mitigation for their conduct. That is so typical of what police officers say and do that it's hard for the general population to accept that. I never accept it, but I also know that a lot of people on juries do, because jurors want to give the police the benefit of the doubt. The issue in this case is, why would you give these officers the benefit of the doubt when you in fact a man is dead, who really at most he did was run a traffic stop sign or change lane without giving a signal, that person should not be dead. And so whoever caused that, if they cause it in a physically aggressive way, they have committed a homicide. And that homicide is a violation of that person's civil rights under the federal law, and therefore should receive the harshest sentence possible, I would think. And I think they're going to get harsh sentences because the public is going to demand that they get harsh sentences, because you can't not have a harsh sentence when a person commits a minor traffic violation and the person winds up dead. But I can tell you this, Joseph, I had a case in Danville where a young man was shot and killed by the police under very questionable circumstances. We have a jury trial. The judge gave him voluntary manslaughter in only 6 years, where he could have gotten a whole lot more, but he didn't. And the judge thought that he had punished him quite much. And the Oscar Grant case where the officer measurably shot and killed Oscar, who was unarmed, shot him in the back, and claimed at the time he was drawing his taser when in fact he drew his weapon, although there's a factual dispute about that. He got 2 years.
Yeah.
So police officers, if it's situational, they probably get less time than if it's something that was premeditated, that is, that they've been laying to get this guy, and they're laying in wait. They had a bad situation with him and they've been waiting to get a chance. They saw a chance to kill him. Here, they didn't have that. This was situational at the time. What the police and everybody's upset about, is how much they lied about it.
Yeah.
These people just flat out lied, and it was, lying and covering up, and believed that they would never be caught and that no one would ever talk against them. Those are the kind of facts that a judge can, in fact, and should impose a stiff sentence on these men for that kind of conduct.
It was a shock to many in the Black community and probably in communities of color period that these were Black officers that did that. And you and I know one of the hallmarks of police accountability as reform is to get more officers, quote, from the community, right? Officers who look like the constituents they serve. I guess that doesn't guarantee anything necessarily. When it did that in fact shock you that these were 5 Black officers who did this?
Well, it was shocking, more disappointing that it was 5 Black officers. It wasn't surprising when I realized that they all work in a specialized unit. One of the things we know in policing, these specialized units, whether it's drug task force or prostitution task force or whatever kind of forces, they become the law unto themselves. They really do not abide by the traditional officers' rules on the office, and unless they are checked, they become renegades. So here we had these officers assigned to this specialized unit called the Scorpion units, was to stop and frisk, to search people, the kind of things we had in the Ryder's case 25 years ago, where these are lawless type activities that were taking place. So to the extent that they were in that kind of unit, and it was 5 officers, it doesn't surprise me that those kind of guys all would stick together. Our more disappointment is that, like you said, a lot of effort was spent down through the years to get more Black officers in the department, and we certainly did not expect them to then act like the white officers who have been mistreating the Black community all these years. But we also have found that there are some officers who do that, and there are Black officers who do that as shamefully as some of the white officers. I haven't found that to be on the same level, but I have found it to be the case.
Must be something when they get in there. It's the power dynamic that goes into it. There's all
the culture of a department.
It's the culture.
The culture of the department. Yeah, the culture of the department.
And to survive in that culture, sometimes you get misguided and you take on that culture. And if you get into a department where, or even a unit, not even the entire department, just a unit.
Yeah.
You get assigned to a unit, and that unit has a reputation for mistreatment.
Yeah.
And you take up on that culture if you want to survive.
Yeah.
If an officer does, and officers are taught about brotherhood, one for all and all for one. So you get assigned to a unit like that, you undoubtedly try to do the same thing or not cause yourself to do it. But ultimately, if you don't do it, you will get shunned out of that particular unit or out of the department itself. And I've seen that happen on more than one occasion. That's not all officers, but I can tell you But you
No.
could easily get kicked out that way because
No,
of that
no.
particular culture of the department, or a
Yeah.
particular unit engages in that kind of conduct.
Yeah, anytime we talk about these acts of misconduct, I always have to point out we're not talking about all officers. In fact, one of the things I used to say, and I've said this before on the show, and I said at the police commission, I don't have a problem with police. I have a problem with misconduct. Okay, I have a problem.
Misconduct, absolutely. That's what you
Misconduct.
should have. in there.
Yeah, we just did the Tyreek Hill. What happened to him in Miami a little while ago, and unfortunately, both of these things are traffic stops, and it's crazy. Well, I mean, like, Hill, you know what happened to him. He got handcuffed, slammed on the ground, so on and so forth. In this case, Mr. Nichols died, but this is not, it's not a robbery. It's not a murder. There's no firearm involved. That's the thing that gets you. These things are happening over traffic stops. And
Right.
let me ask you, John, the other thing we really tried to put into place, hold on, we're gonna I got a call, but how many minutes, John? I put into place was body cameras, right? And so hoping that it would be a deterrent on the officer's part, and everybody would be caught in the act. Is it that they're not thinking, or do they forget the cameras there, or well, I don't know.
Well, they turn the cameras off. They don't have the cameras on at the important point of time when it's supposed to be on. I mean, cameras help police officers a lot in cases, they really do, because conduct that people make claim about the cops don't really necessarily happen.
Yeah.
But I do not believe necessarily that it'll stop police shootings. Cell phones have been a big deal. That's like a third eye on the street. That's been very helpful. But I think reducing police shootings is really a function of the training that officers get and holding them accountable. Because you all know, and a lot of you young people know about this, racial profiling is a huge deal. If you look at what has recently happened, and that means that police officers stop Black people without probable cause or with a reasonable basis to do so.
John, hold on 1 sec. We got a couple calls. We want to get them while they're here, and then we can continue our conversation. Hi, you're on Street Soldiers. What was on my mind is the verdict in the Tyre Nichols case. Go right ahead. Where you calling from and your thoughts?
San Francisco, calling from SF. About justice, that's a complicated thing to me, especially since I'm a philosopher of sorts. I can hear your guests talk about it. It doesn't seem. I don't think anybody really knows how to be equitable, perfect, divine justice. To, if you know what I'm talking about, just to what is it for the equal for the crime, to just
right, the punishment fitting the crime. Yeah, the punishment fitting the crime.
Right, and your guest is smart. Your guest is a smart man, and I think he will. He probably wants the answers, but to a very complicated world and universe, that justice thing is real complicated. On the Supreme Court thing, I think there's a Latin thing, Latin words for the Supreme Court. Our United States Supreme Court. It's supposed to be the highest in the nation, and it's in Latin. It says something about what is justice. I mean, they even themselves question what is justice. Apparently, that's what's I don't. You could look it up.
Yeah, no, but we got to come up. You got to have guidelines, right? And that's why they have, consequences, and they have rules, and they have sentencing protocols and all of that when something like this happens. So, no, I appreciate you the question, but the philosophical's got to turn into the practical. And in this case, we're talking about police and the consequences of police misconduct. So we'll see. And you got juries and so on and so forth. And appreciate your thoughts and your calls. And Mr. Burris is a smart man. And this is his business. He's been doing this for a long time, trying to get justice for those.
Let me tell you this. I have empathy for his comments, because I also understand and appreciate justice is not the same for everyone.
Yeah.
Justice is a function of can be who you are, what's your station in life, how much economic you have, what are your political affiliations.
Yeah.
You know, I drove me literally insane for years having to fight these battles when I could see the racial disparity in the interpretation of the laws for black people versus white people and for Mexicans, etc. So his point is, on a practical way, is really true. Although you're right, there has to be a set of rules that we can at least try and adhere to, even though we recognize there are factors that come into play that may affect the ultimate interpretation and how it's applied to any individual case.
You know, you mentioned racial profiling, and I remember when I was on the commission, we had to actually pass, I guess, something into the general orders. I think that's what if I remember my time on there, you know, prohibiting racial profiling. And I remember being actually, I saw this article come out, and when I was on the commission, that the California Highway Patrol admitted it engaged in racial profiling. They admitted they
Right.
said, okay, we got to stop. So when you hear him say these things, I don't want people to think that this doesn't exist, right? And isn't still existing in one of these 18,000 police departments we've got around the United States. We got another call. Go right ahead. You're on Street Soldiers with Street Soldiers and Attorney John Burris. Go right ahead. You're
So
on.
I'm just listening. I am Madhu Venga. You know, we knew Boris for a long time. I'm just listening to the conversation.
Oh, you just listening. Okay, you called in to listen that way. All right, 877-95.
Let me make a quick reference on the racial profiling, because I think that what you said is so true. Recently, the Racial Identity Profiling Act, a state commission, issued its findings after looking throughout the entire state of traffic stops that have taken place in over 3 or 4 year period recently. African Americans were 6.2 times more likely to be stopped by the police than whites and every other ethnic groups. And they were also found 60% more likely to be let go, meaning that there wasn't any basis to stop them in the first place. But they were stopped. And the reason why they were stopped, one, because they wanted African Americans, but secondly, they want to look in their car.
Yeah.
They want to search them to see if they can find any contrabands, anything that they can use to create a basis to arrest you. So these are real issues that are happening every day. So don't be fooled by any of this. It means you do have to watch yourself, of course, but racial profiling does exist and is alive and well and exists throughout this country, including cases where I've done a lot of work in Oakland, a lot of work in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And of course, I've been on these other outlying areas, and it's just blatant the way Black people are stopped in these places.
I'm reading The Riders Come Out at Night, which came out, I think, last year about the Oakland Police Department. And you're definitely featured in there about talking about your police reform, you know? It's you've always done such powerful work. So thank you for that, for sticking up for people.
Yeah, you've been at this. We got another call. All right, we'll take the calls. No, call's gone. Call. Come and go. Come and go. Come and go. You've been at this a long time. This is your, you know, this is what you do. And particularly after, well, let's go all the way, go back to, you know, I guess the modern police, the current police reform movement. Let's go back to Trayvon Martin, then you go to Michael Brown, and then of course you go to George Floyd. And you know, I think in the last few years there's been a real push to have some real police reform and accountability. And what I always tell folks is that it's not a national thing. There are 18,000 police departments. So even if you get, you know, one working hard, local jurisdictions, you get one going, it's so uneven from place to place to place. But what do you think is this feeling? Do you see progress in certain areas around certain things? I know in San Francisco that, you know, we worked hard to change the use of force policies. But just what do you see and how do you feel? Of course, it's all diminished when you see something like this that happened to Brother Nichols.
When you say there's 18,000 police departments, that's so true, which there's almost 18,000 different ways of looking at things. Mm-hmm. However, I think in major cities with large Black population and large sophisticated police departments, there are real efforts made to hold police accountable. Yeah. And you've had that in San Francisco. You know, we did a lot of work around, you know, when Mayor Lee was there, and the feds came in and
Yeah.
and try to put some reform efforts. And we did the same thing in Oakland. We put this whole reform package together, and we saw real benefits there because the shootings went down, the stoppage went down, the beatings went down, all the and things that you might not think are significant. That is people being handcuffed, because a lot of people got handcuffed if they're black, but they would handcuff the whites for the same things. So there has been progress in those areas, and there's been progress on the state legal side, legislative side, where new laws have been enacted in terms of when you got to give up files and when you got to record certain kinds of data. Even the modification of the law in terms of what's necessary in order for the police to be held accountable for their conduct. The laws have changed in that. We've seen that likewise in other states as well. So it is not something, and this is a lot of after George Floyd. Now, the George Floyd Racial Political Act that was in Congress did not pass because the Republicans would not go for the qualified immunity component of it.
Yeah.
But that may come back at some later point. And the Justice Department under Biden has done a lot of work on pattern and practice in a lot of different cities. That was important. Obama period did as well. The problem is, when I say all that, that is to say a department is looked at by the feds to see if there is a pattern and practice of constitutional discrimination taking place, like what may happen in the city of Memphis. Because if you read the article about Memphis, they talked about there's a department looked at as having a pattern and practice of engaging in this kind of conduct, not just these officers. So federal governments have been doing a lot of work in this area. People like myself, and not only here, but around the country, the national organization, they're fighting these issues. So it's not being unlooked at. It is being looked at on a daily basis, but it is chipping away. It's a chipping away concept that may not get finished in our lifetime. But I can tell you, it's a whole lot different now than it was when I first started doing this, at least in terms of holding police accountable.
Yeah.
That part is true.
Yeah. One more call. We got another one. All right, here we go. You're on with Attorney John Burris and the Street Soldiers. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear Mr. Burris's feedback on how district attorneys pretty much provide cover for these police departments. I'm hearing situations where police flat out murder somebody and they can't get charged with a murder. You know, they get like a slap on the wrist or whatever. And I'm just curious as to why don't district attorneys, officers, prosecutors, why don't they prosecute police for their misconducts and their killing?
Now, I'll tell you, the major reason is, and this is something that I've been very critical of myself, is that the close working relationship between the police and the district attorney's office. The DA cannot do their work, that is to say, prosecute people, without the cooperation of the police. And so they need the police. Now the question then becomes, when the DA sees that an officer has engaged in misconduct, whether it's a beating or a shooting, what do they then do? Well, they typically will investigate those matters, and they give the benefit of the doubt to the police officers. Very, very few departments actually prosecute the police. I've been involved in a number of efforts down through the years trying to get police prosecuted. Even in San Francisco, I had 3 were being prosecuted under the previous DA. The new DA came in and she changed it totally, even though there was good evidence that the officers had killed these young people. So I would say this, it's very political. I've been around the state and dealing with these kind of cases, and rarely, if ever, do you get the DA to prosecute anybody. The DA in San Francisco, and Contra Costa, she prosecuted 1 case that I've been involved in. I was very happy about that. The city of Alameda County DA has several cases that she's looking at now. I've sent a number of cases to her. And so there are courageous DAs that will do it, but not easily, because the general public is not necessarily for that. And then number 2, you have the situation where the DA and the police work together, and the DA does not want to be at loggerheads with the police department because they do need them. And so it takes a courageous DA to do something like that. Not all of them are prepared to prosecute the police, even though legally they can, but they don't.
Thank you. Another call? Yes, go right ahead. You are on.
Well, yeah, my question to Mr. Burris is, this is Madhu Venga. I'm just curious, he has been doing it even when there were no body cam footage. Is the racism more now, or is it more being filmed?
There's a lot, well, there's two kinds of films taking place. Most departments now have body cams that officers have their regulations designed for when they have to turn them on and turn them off, and how they can be held accountable when they don't do it. All departments don't have the same rules, but they do have them. And it's been very, very significant. I think it's probably helped the police as much as anything in terms of how they relate to the police. I think it curtails their behavior to some extent, because I'll tell you, nothing looks worse than a police officer that's frantically beating somebody outrageously, and the camera's on it, and everybody can look to see if there was a justification for it. So I do think body cameras have helped in cutting down on the vicious beating like the one we had in Rodney King. We don't have those kind of beatings, not with body cameras. And on top of that, you have cell phones that everybody walk by a situation can turn their cell phone on and they can record it. And that has had a deterrent effect as well in terms of the notorious beating cases. I don't think it stops shooting cases, because shooting cases can be perceived as life and death situations. And all officers would shoot if they think their life is in danger, whether it's justified or not. But in terms of beatings, some arrests, I do think it does help a lot for that too, but have body cameras and cell phones out in the community.
The calls are rolling in, John. Go ahead. Take the next one.
Okay.
Okay.
I had called earlier, but my call dropped out. But what I wanted to follow up with is we have a district attorney in my county, Alameda County, who just over the last 24 hours, every police department in Alameda County endorsed her recall. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with the fact that she's holding police officers accountable for their misconduct. Pretty much she's not going along with the program.
I think that's right. I think that the police have decided, associations, that she is a person that will hold them accountable, and they do not want that to occur. And as a consequence, they think they would prefer to have a more traditional DA, because this present DA did not come out of the DA's office and did not have the relationships already established with the DA personnel. So therefore, there was less a sense of beholding. But being that she was a civil rights lawyer, she did not have the same desire to protect police the way police were used to being protected. So it is not surprising that the police associations have come out against her, but that's largely because politically the police want to be insulated and not being held accountable by the local DA, and they don't want to be prosecuted. Regardless of how bad their crime is, they would always try to cover for it. So it is not surprising that the local police agents or unions are against her, because in their view is she is not protecting them in the way they were accustomed to being protected.
Wow, boy, he's knowledgeable. He even got into the politics part, which I just want to really, man, want to thank you so much for just for this evening. Your perspective. Want to thank you for all the work that you've done around police misconduct. It's a huge thing. It takes, and it can be very discouraging. It can be very discouraging for all of us who want this thing to be, treatment to be equitable. I do got to say it out there, I want to thank all those officers who don't engage in misconduct. I always say the worst thing for a good cop is a bad cop, because all people see is a uniform, right? All people see is a uniform. And so I want to thank all of them, get in it for the right reasons, do your job well. My phone is going crazy. I had no idea that it was. And just thanks for, we'll keep an eye on this Tyreek Nichols thing, how the verdict is and how it comes in the sentencing. But this, man, thanks for everything. Thanks for your thoughts, words. I can't say enough about it, man. I got more out of you than I thought I was going to get.
Appreciate you.
But yeah, we do, man. We do. And like I said, I know the brother a long time. All right.
All right, Rolf. Thanks a lot. Good talk to you.
Oh, man. Thank you so much, man. All right. Okay.
So in case you missed the conversation or want to listen to this again, you can go ahead and find us at stayaliveandfree.org to catch up with the podcast. We are still on YouTube Live right now. Go ahead and head over there, YouTube Live at Stay Alive and Free. We'll see you over there.
All right. All right, Alive and Free, Street Soldiers Radio, hour number two. Man, what a great discussion we had at first hour. Let me just sum that up quickly before we move into the second hour and our topic, and then I'll introduce our guests. I want to just say thank John Burris so much for talking to us about the verdict in the Tyre Nichols death. The young man who was beaten to death by those 5 black officers in Memphis, Tennessee. The verdict came down in the case, and John explained that there will probably another state trial. But you know, anytime these things happen, it's just I need perspective. I need somebody who's in it. I need somebody because it's just crazy. I mean, this is again a traffic stop, and unlike the Tyree Hill traffic stop, which did not result in him getting killed, this one did. And Ann, I just before I leave this, I just want to read real quick. This is what his parents said. I just want to read what his parents said. This is Tyree's relatives. He said, "Thank God all of them are going to jail for what they did to my boy." This is Rodney, his older sister says, "I will never get my little brother back, but the city officers held accountable for what they did, and what they put our family through did give me some hope for the future, and maybe this won't ever happen to another family. But I'm just so thankful. I was smiling when I saw them get taken away." So what's my favorite line with the kids? One person can do a lot of damage and one person can do a lot of good. In this case, those officers did a lot of damage, and they ain't gonna get no love from nobody. Okay, black or not, they ain't getting no love. They not getting any love. Lady, you want to make any quick? I know you were listening to John. We didn't get you right. Hear your voice at the top. You want to make any comments on that first hour? Whoa, she disappeared. I just said that you want to make any comments, and then she turned her camera off.
I need a moment.
All right. Well, I'll give a 5. I'll give a 4. I'll give a 3. I'll give a 2. I'll give a 1. Okay. Well, you can't do that. Okay. So the topic for tonight was what's on your mind, and so far everything has been on my mind, and the show has gone in that direction. In the second hour, what is on my mind is this proposition that is on the California ballot, and it involves Article 1, Section 6 of the California Constitution. And I got a long thing explaining it here, but I got somebody who can explain it better than me and say why this is important to look at also. So I want to bring in the second thing that's on my mind. The second Doreen just is Mr. Dorsey Nunn. Dorsey, thank you for being here with us. That first hour was something. I know you may have heard got a little listen to it, but thank you for coming on and explaining us about this proposition that's on the ballot and why you feel that is so very important. So how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. And thanks for having me.
You are with legal. You say who you're with. Yeah. I always get that. I get to the legal part, and then legal services of parents with children. I got it. LPSC.
I'm with. I'm executive director emeritus for legal services for prisons with children,
right. And
I recently retired.
Yep.
And subsequently, I couldn't do both. Be on the book campaign and as well as actually manage an organization of that size. Yep. At the time that I retired, I think we had about 31, 32 employees, and we was operating a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. And I'm also a founder of a number of different things, like All of Us Anon, the formerly incarcerated convicted people and family movement, which has national implications.
Yeah, let me just, before we even get into this particular issue that you're going to talk about, let's talk about all the work, the good work that you and your organization have done over the years. I know when I first had you on a few years ago, it was around ban the box. Ban the box. That box that you check off if you're a formerly incarcerated person that basically says you have been convicted of a crime, something like that. You can explain it better than I can, and how that got in the way of was very prejudicial to people getting hired just because of that box was checked off. And I know you did a whole lot of work on that, and you've also done a lot of work around getting the formerly incarcerated the right to vote. And I know you've done work around that, and you've also done work around what's the other one? Oh, records expungement. And that's just the 3I, and you explain all of those better than me, and why you've done that, and it's a logical thing to show why you're moving into this, looking at this proposition almost. Just talk about that work very quickly.
You know, like when I got into the question of ban the box, ban the box is just the term that we coined to actually talk about a structural discrimination.
Yeah.
You know, and before we had Obamacare, we couldn't provide any particular health care for our families because we wasn't able to get a job, because most of the real medical care came through employment, your employment opportunities and your employment places. Some parts of ban the box in the structural discrimination, it had, have you been convicted of a felony? Have you been arrested? Had you did this or that? Which, you know, brings me to the conclusion. There was no presumption of rehabilitation, no matter how much time that I had served.
Because
You know,
that box had to be checked. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, like, and it's not just the question of the employment. You know, there's other people still engaged in the work, and they're going to ask, you know, what's on the FAFSA application if somebody wants to change their careers and go to college? Yeah. Is it on the FAFSA application? What happens when you get into, you know, having money to rent an apartment? Is it on an apartment application for housing? Yeah. Is it on all kind of applications? But unless you've been convicted of a crime, most people just assume that it's not about them. And to the most part, what it actually does is not only compromise the security for people coming home from prison, it compromises all of our security. Yeah. So like when I get into all of these different levels of the struggle, what was in the back of my mind was doing the dance of a slave when I was arrested. And when I came out 11 years later, I knew that I had been enslaved. Everybody else just seen it as simple punishment. Mm. You know, involuntary servitude is another name for slavery.
Well, hold on before we go there, because we're going to get into that, and that's what it was. But I just want to get the people out there. You're formerly incarcerated. You came out and wanted to do something about what happens inside and the opportunities for folks that do their time. Before we even get in, because this just makes me so curious about things. And this fits into this. What does it say there's a whole thing in the Constitution about slavery is abolished in the United States of America, except for, that's the one I remember, except for those that are incarcerated. I think that was written
except for those people that was duly convicted.
Yeah, duly convicted. Yeah, duly convicted.
You know, and and that's the 13th Amendment.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, Ava DuVernay made the whole movie about the 13th Amendment.
Yeah. Great.
And then she called it 13. Michelle Alexander wrote about it too in her book. Yeah. And probably there's only 16 states that are left that actually have it incorporated into their constitution. and California is one of them.
How is it going with getting the formerly incarcerated the right to vote? I know Florida had a big thing about it, and I know they passed some serious. I mean, and the problem with all is you got to go to it's in the council. You got to change the Constitution. It's a lot of work. Okay, it's not just you do it, because it's written into a lot of constitutions into state law. But how is that going with getting the national movement, and how it is in certain areas with getting the formerly incarcerated the right to vote? You have to be off parole, off probation, on probation. I get bits and pieces of it, but what's that like now?
Hey, like the work that I've been doing, most of the time that people see me, they think that I'm only working on behalf of incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They can't see that when we passed secured the right for people on parole to vote,
mm-hmm.
Who were the people? They essentially was Black and brown people that we was expanding the voting pool for people that's, most likely if you voting today, most likely 9 out of 10 things that you're voting for, I'm probably going to be in support of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about how do we actually resolve the issue of the full restoration of our civil and our human rights?
That's the phrase. Yeah.
Because fundamentally, in the event that we can actually get to the notion that the state of California is practicing slavery, they don't see it. Most people don't see it. Most people don't see the byproduct of chattel slavery was cotton, tobacco, and steel. We don't see the byproducts of my enslavement. We don't see that when you take your kids to school and you standing at the stop sign, that stop sign most likely was made by a slave. You don't see it when you walk into a motor vehicle department that the furniture was produced by us, or in the courtrooms that was California courtrooms. You don't see it. You don't see it, and subsequently, not only do you not see it, the notion of punishment renders make slavery almost invisible or justify its practice. So when I came home, the first real thing that stood out, because I looked for my son initially for 2 days when I came home, and the first thing that when I found my son, and I told him, I'm your father, I just got out of prison, and I've loved you even though I haven't been there for you. And I was prohibited from being there from you because I was incarcerated. And I asked him, being that I'm your father, what do you want? And his immediate response was he wanted a room to himself and a Walkman radio, of which I had labored for 10 years and didn't have the ability to afford any of that. And not only did I not have the ability to afford any of that, I didn't have the ability to produce the insurance that I thought that he needed. I didn't have the ability to do any of those things initially. But I'm in much better shape than a lot of people that have been leaving prison, probably because since I was in prison, they had defined the primary purpose of prison is punishment.
Yeah.
And if they're going to define it that way, then why do we have an expectation that we should improve the plight of people coming home, and we should actually advance the notion that we are much more secure in terms of our security? Because it's not like I just I want to help people that's getting out of prison. I want to help all people. And to the most part, some of the people that are coming home, if we don't necessarily abolish the practice of slavery inside of California Department of Corrections, why would we think that they're operating in our best interest? Slavery give work a bad name.
What is the essence of this proposition? Because I got an email that you sent me here And I'll read it, then you sort of explain. I am willing about the current effort to change the California Constitution. Article 1, Section 6 of the California Constitution is very similar to the 13th Amendment of the United States, which allows for the practice of slavery for people duly convicted of crimes. To allow this ugly practices to continue. Well, anyway, involuntary servitude is slavery by another name, and so what does the California statute say that you will that this particular ballot proposition is trying to change?
Hey, the first thing that we're trying to change is the Constitution of California that allows for the practice of slavery or for the practice of involuntary servitude. You know, in relationship to the Department of Corrections, they're mandated to have every able-bodied person that's actually going to work. Now, nobody tells everybody out here on the street. They probably only got 30,000 jobs with 90,000 people. You know, so at a certain point, shouldn't it be that, hey, Dr. Marshall, if I didn't get any education, you probably wouldn't be interviewing me right now because I'd probably be a different person. If I didn't have access to the education and people in the prison that when I showed up, and it was a different era because I was there with probably Black Panther members, BLA members, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And when I came in, they taught me how to read. And one of the things they asked me to do was the price of my education was to make a promise to return to the community an asset instead of a liability. That was the price of what my education cost. And I assumed that, you know, I thought that my education was important enough and the value in it. I've worked as hard as I can to actually do the best things I can do for the community. So like most of the time I talk about prison, people don't recognize that I've also built a drug program in East Palo Alto called Free at Last, and I was on the founding members. Now, the first idea that I came up with when we came to Free at Last was to do three things. One thing was to stop the crack epidemic in our community. The second thing to do was to stop the pandemic that was AIDS. And the third thing to do was to stop violence in the community. You know, last year was the first time that we didn't have a murder in East Palo Alto last year.
Yeah.
That took over 30 years worth of work.
Yeah. I'm reading this specifically, and it says this is the proposed amendment to Article 1. It says the Section 6 of Article 1 is amended to read, and it would this is what they're suggesting: slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited. Okay. Now, was there before was slavery is prohibited and voluntary servitude is prohibited except to punish crime. That's what's in there now. And this is being asked to strike is prohibitive, involuntary and servitude except to punish crime. All right, because according to this read, if you've been convicted, then it's not prohibited. It's not prohibited. And that is actually mirrors the 13th Amendment. And so the reading now would be slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited. And I gotta say, you know how they have these books that have pro and con, and you know who's for it and who's against it, and explain. As far as I can see, I picked up, and Dorsey helped me with this. Nobody is against this. I mean, are there any major funding groups who are saying this should not, it should remain? I mean, have you run across anybody saying, "Well, no, don't change it"?
No, they're not saying that don't change it, but to the most part, I think that people are completely ignorant of the reality that of the practice of slavery.
Right.
I used to always hear people say ignorance is bliss. It can also be dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. No,
You know,
no.
it could not
What
be
they
blitz
said-
and dangerous at the
Well,
same
what,
time.
what they said was what you don't know can't hurt you. What you don't know can kill you, right? And I always use well, we didn't know cigarettes cause cancer, right? So we died, right? Now that we know, you got a chance to stay alive if you don't smoke. So you're right, but I'm just trying. This is on the ballot. This will be voted upon, and I'm wondering if there's any strenuous or even small funded or non-funded opposition saying it should not read slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited. And is in other states as you go through, is California lagging here, or is at the forefront, or how is this?
Hold it. We are lagging terribly.
Okay.
We're lagging terribly. I think there's only 16 states left that's there, and I think that, if it's a broader vision about what we should do, I think that if we line up for everybody who passed prohibited the practice of involuntary servitude, I think that ultimately we had changed the 13th Amendment.
Yeah.
So like, it ain't like I just want a small piece of it. I don't want a slavery to be practiced any place in the country.
You know what this made me, I was say, this made me think of, and a lot of folks don't know this. Some people don't know. In the early 20th century, and I don't know how far into it went, but I know they had these vagrancy laws for Black folks. And Black folks could go to jail just for, not having a job. Of course, they wasn't giving anybody no job, but they were considered vagrants, and they would go to job. And then they had this practice where they would be shipped off to some steel mill somewhere, or, in Pennsylvania. And of course, they're sitting on a corner in Alabama, right? The next day they called it convict leasing, right? And I remember reading that, and they had no say. They're bought by, I guess, I don't know if they were bought by these folks, and I don't know how they worked out, but I just remember that phrase, convict leasing. So, and it's just there's a part of American history, which, folks are trying to now like ban these books, but that folks don't know. So, you're standing on the corner, you want a job, you can't get a job, you're considered a vagrant, you go to jail, and the next day you're shipped off to some steel mill in Pennsylvania, and you're leased to them. And that just made me this whole thing of slavery, servitude, convict leasing, and you never see your family again. And no, this is all post when slavery is supposed to be abolished. And it just reared that ugly, horrible thought for me. And of course, for me, I connect everything to my, my great, 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 great. We all got great, 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 greats. And I'm saying he's just gone. Uncle Joe is gone, and he's in some steel mill somewhere, and he can't get out, right? Until he fulfills some fact that somebody they leased him because he was a convict.
Hey, Dr. Marshall, how about we still got to practice vibrant inside the United States?
Yeah.
Right? So it ain't just like it's the steel mill. In places like Alabama, they're going to be rented out to McDonald's. Yeah. And they're going to be servicing your food. They're going to be doing all that other stuff. So like I'm saying, ignorance may not always be bliss. You may not know who's serving you your food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Social media taught me that, and I just really value that, because that was mind-blowing and heartbreaking, where, they're like, oh, the new minimum wage here in San Francisco is $20. But then when you're looking at this like work release program where they work at McDonald's, serving you the food, are getting paid pennies and going back to the jail, and you're just like, wait, what? How is this happening? How do we not know about this? What is going on?
And no, I mean, look, if they're trying to go back to the old days right now. I think we know that, Dorsey, right? They're really trying to go back, right? They're trying to go back to all this practice. I'm gonna leave that alone this week. I'll be back at that next week when we talk about the current political climate and this election coming up. It's what would you? And I like when you said that, because you said there are still states that have this on the books. We're going to get change here. But I like what you said. The ultimate goal is to get this out of the 13th Amendment, right? You know, change the 13th Amendment. You shouldn't even have it in there, right? You shouldn't be considered a slave or involuntary servitude if you've been convicted of a crime. But as long as that thought process is in there, then that's where they're going to look at you. That's the way you're going to be looked at and treated when you are incarcerated. So yeah, that's the precedent here.
Hey, Dr. Marshall, when I talk about the presumption of rehabilitation upon the completion of a sentence, when I came home, I was all excited. I did the best of my ability to do everything I could to practice rehabilitation when I was incarcerated. What I ran into was a whole group of people who were not rehabilitated. That was just the average person. They figure like I should be enslaved. So like questions that I came up with probably initially when I got out, when is slavery ever justified?
Good question.
When is it justified?
Right.
You know, because like at a certain point when they say, all right, except for people duly convicted of a crime or punishment, initially, when the colonialists pulled up on Africa and they started grabbing people, they was grabbing people that a tribe was actually providing them with the people who they thought were acting out. At a certain point, what is the distinction and when should it be permissible? You know, because at a certain point, when you say nobody's in opposition, I think a lot of people's in opposition. You know, because like when we do the polling, only 46% of us agree, and 50% says no. We're gonna fight in the margins. We're only fighting for 4 or 5%. You know, when you say it's nobody in opposition, they're not putting it in opposition, but I can read the reports that's coming out in newspapers are actually taking positions in terms of the editorial boards. You know, so we feel quite comfortable with the practice of slavery. We feel uncomfortable about the notion of actually prohibiting it. And, you know, and furthermore, we feel like even more uncomfortable actually having people suggest reparations for the labor the union already stole. So like at a certain point, you know, so like in this election, people are going to be talking about body autonomy, right? I think that's the abortion fight is about body autonomy. It don't necessarily mean that the lack of body autonomy in prison is actually applicable, you know, because at a certain point, I can be punished if I tattooed myself in prison. That dance of a slave and all the rest of it, it can be classified as security. But to the most part, the thing that we're trying to get is that people provide educational services. People provide real opportunities to actually get a job or get trained in a job. So when they come home, they can take care of your family. And even more importantly, we can take care of all of our security. So at a certain point, the fight is larger than just the 90,000 people that's probably within the California Department of Corrections. And by the way, we're probably going to change that number as soon as we pass Proposition 36, and that probably increase to housing a lot more. But, you know, like to the most part, I don't think that on Juneteenth, when we lost before, and it didn't get through the legislature because it didn't been pushed out through the legislature right now. And at least people who were enslaved by the California Department of Corrections and other prisons, the first $200,000 that was put up for this fight, that was formerly incarcerated people throwing that in. You know, so not all of us are not working. And some of us are educated enough to actually figure out like slavery is real and it has been practiced on us. So like in the event that y'all really want to have the notion of having people practicing rehabilitation, maybe we should take it out the Constitution because it's hard to think that you're trying to be rehabilitated while the person standing above you is practicing slavery. You don't necessarily gonna think that like rehabilitation, I should love this person. I should believe this person. You know, how about if we take it out the Constitution, then maybe somebody's trusting, is demonstrating trustworthiness on a number of different sources. You know, so like the people who educated me was Black Panther members and other probably radical people who were in prison. And I went to get certified when I went to school, but they taught me how to read, you know. And then sooner or later, I started stumbling through the autobiography of Malcolm X. I started studying through Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver. I started reading Orwell's book, The Invisible Man, and The Wretched Earth, and I started reading Orwell's book, 1984. They started feeding me materials that actually grew what I thought about. So at the same time, as it was growing, I was growing intellectually, it made my world much smaller because I was still locked in a cage. I was still, every time I went to visit a loved one, I was being stripped butt naked, bend over, cough, and all the rest of that stuff. You know, so at a certain point, if you can't necessarily outlaw, if you can't abandon the practice of slavery everywhere on the continent, then everybody's eligible for that stuff.
Listen,
everybody's eligible for it.
Let's say one more time what we're trying to make the people who are watching and listening to the show, what we want to make them take notice of. There is a amendment proposed to Section 6 of Article 1, and which will be voted on in this election coming up. And the amendment says it is changing the wording of slavery is prohibited, involuntary servitude is prohibited except to punish crime. And the new reading would be slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited. That will be on the California ballot in November. Wow. And I don't spend a lot of time, but a lot of things I don't talk about on the show because if I be on there, I'm not a political show in that sense, but when the work that Dorsey involved in, getting the formerly incarcerated the right to vote, all of the things that he's been done, I'll make time to do that. This is valuable. This is important, and vote. It's that simple. Read it and vote. You read it and vote. Read it and vote. I can't think of anyone more who's more passionate and eloquent about this than the man you've been listening to. So Dorsey, we're gonna
wait.
Yeah.
There's one more thing you need to read. It's called "What Kind of Bird Can't Fly." A memoir of resilience and resurrection by our own Dorsey Nunn. I just wanted to go ahead and highlight that. Just came out this year, and it's in my library.
Yeah, okay, you a couple minutes. The book. Say about the book. Thank you.
Hey, I'm supposed to be retired, and I've been fighting slavery so hard. I'm supposed to sell a book.
Now here's the thing. I'm gonna tell you about it. You're the second person I've talked to. They retired, right? And they working more than they retired. And the person I talked to before said, "Man, I'm working harder than I was when I wasn't retired. I ain't getting paid. I ain't getting paid for it." I said, "That's why I ain't retiring, because I'm working hard. I'm gonna get paid, right? That's why I'm not gonna retire." But talk about the book. Yes, just say a little bit about the book.
The book, like what happened was I was laying up in prison and I was thinking about, I was sentenced to prison for life.
Wow.
And I got arrested when I was 19. So you'd be a damn fool if you're not sitting there in that position thinking about, how did I get here?
Of course.
And the reality of it is how did I got there. At the first part of the book, my first chapter is innocent, innocent is unavailable and guilt not required.
Mm.
Because like my first 4 stops that I thought about changed the context of how I looked at myself. You know, so like when everybody's talking about a presumption of innocent, when I moved to Menlo Park in 1956, there was no presumption of Black people being innocent. What I had ran into before I had the language was white flight. What I ran into was blockbusting. What I ran into was the police stopping and jacking people based on just simply being Black.
Yep.
So the first time that I had any encounter, I must have been 7 years old, 6 or 7 years old. And they took a bicycle from me.
Oh.
Right? And by the way,
Which is why he gives away bicycles now.
I love the community so much that I give away a bicycle.
Bicycles
I done
now.
gave away thousands of bicycles to little Black and brown kids because
Okay.
I don't want them to go through them changing the identity of how they felt. Like when everybody, it's like white flight was what happens when they ran away. They stripped the educational system. It
But
wasn't like I didn't wind up in school and couldn't read. Was
Right.
because they stripped and stripped education because the teachers was the whites that was in our neighborhood.
Okay,
And-
Dorsey,
yeah.
hold on. You will go through the whole book tonight. I don't want you to do that, right?
You gotta-
I want you to give a synopsis,
A
real
synopsis
quick
of the
thing.
book.
Well, you know, more
Hey,
how long did it take you to write it? What were your
it,
thoughts
it,
about it?
it took 4 years to write it.
Okay.
And I'm not going to get into prison porn because most of the book is about what I did after I got out of prison.
Right. Okay.
You know, because like at a certain point, I walked through 2 gates. I walked through the gates of San Quentin and also the gates of the White House. And when Barack Obama said ban the box, he was actually talking about a coin that I had turned.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. So at a
have-
certain point,
you have done remarkable. I mean, that's why one reason I go into those places, go into the joints, because my hero Malcolm X. That's and so there's a Dorsey in there, there's a Malcolm in there, and I got your brothers. Get ready for when you get out and get the mindset, and you can do wonderful things and so forth, and so say the name of the book one more time, man, and Dorsey, you tell people how to get it. And like soon as they check the proposition, then they go out and get the book.
what kind of bird can't fly? They can go to Amazon. If not, they can go to Barnes and Noble, or they can get it on at Heyday Publishing, and they can buy it there. But the other reality of it is another thing that I've been it's not just a well-written book. I just got finished winning the Penn Award, the Open Penn Award on writing the book.
Oh, congratulations.
So it's not just like, so it's like, and I wrote the book in part because what Malcolm did for me.
Yep. Look, let me tell you something.
So like, so he went in as Red and he came out as Malcolm.
That's right.
Yes.
And
It
then
made it all possible for what I'm doing.
Malcolm that book has gotten me to write a book, and you to write a book. A whole lot of people, a whole lot of people write. That book is the book. Every time I want, look, every time I say, but look, if your consciousness will start when you read the autobiography. All right, that's the book I give to people first. So thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Dorsey.
Yeah.
Thank you for the work. Let's get this proposition passed. Keep on moving. Brother, retire. You can't retire, man. What we gonna do? You can't retire. You can retire this way. Just keep on working, because the work needs to be done.
Hey, Joe, here's the thing that I did is I turned over the organization to a person that's probably 34 years old.
Wow.
At a certain point, we still got to build institutions that can actually allow our young people to come in and actually have opinions and actually do work.
You find the
We're
right
gonna
person.
keep on working.
You
but-
find the right person. That's all you got to do. All right, Lady E, we're gonna turn this over to you. I haven't heard your voice at all tonight. So You take the time you want. From the first,
Well, and you're not going to hear that much of it tonight
No.
because when we have Dorsey on the show, we just need to hear more of Dorsey. Dorsey, how wonderful it is to see you and to hear from you. And I think as I sat and listened, then I just think we need to close out with what you think is most important for us to know at this time. What do we need to know? The most important thing you think that we are needing to know and hear.
A
Take your
most
time.
important thing that I think that you that
That
we
we,
need to know,
our listeners,
our listeners. I don't even want to go religious, but Jesus died on the cross too for my sins,
Mm. Mm.
right? And the last two people he hung out with was two thieves.
that's right.
And the last place that he had actually resided was he was march carrying the cross from a cell.
Right.
So at a certain point, let's not necessarily be about, I feel all these things. Let's get about the practice of actually practicing forgiveness on a lot of levels, because punishment is choking our whole community. And it's actually meaning, like, if they spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars incarcerating people, then we're not spending hundreds of millions of dollars feeding and housing other folks. So that's the bigger question, is that we're paying more for hate than we do for love.
Mm,
Well said.
mm.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Sorry. Dorsey, I just wanted to let you know that my friend is tuning in right now, and he said he just finished your book today. So you are touching lives. Thank you again for joining us tonight. This is
Dorsey, good
beautiful.
luck, man. I'll see you. We be in touch. Well,
Yeah.
look, we're doing the work. We're
And I
doing the
hope
work.
people will register and vote and
Yeah.
think that
Definitely.
in this lifetime, most of the people that are voting right now is younger than us. And it'd be the first time they get a chance to weigh in on the question of slavery.
Absolutely.
This is a historical moment, not only because Kamala Price is, Kamala is running, the vice president is running, but they're going to get a choice to actually weigh in on the question of slavery. And that was put on the ballot by struggling people who actually thought enough to actually remember what our parents probably would have been fighting for.
All right. Let's get out and vote, everybody. Get out
Okay.
and vote. Thank you, Dorsey. Thanks,
Dorsey.
everybody.
Hey, thank you.
You got it, man. Love you, man.
Love
Keep it
you.
up. All right. We'll see everybody next week right here on Street